Hey guys, and welcome back my fellow episodians. As you know, we covered a lot in the last two videos. I'm happy to say in this one, we're going to get into the more fun parts when it comes to editing. If you made it up to here, you probably know that there are some aspects I deliberately left out, mainly since I didn't want to overwhelm you with too much information. With that being said, the hard part is pretty much out of the way, and now we're going to get into utilizing our tools to actually make new projects. Before we get into it, there are some minor status updates that I'd like to go over right quick. If you would like to get right into the tutorial, I'll put a timestamp just for you. The first one is, I want to thank you for hitting 40 subscribers. When I made this YouTube channel, I was kind of hesitant on making one since I didn't know where to start, but since I returned back to Episode, there's a new generation of Episode users that would like to get started. I would like to fill that gap for them since I know becoming a new author within the Episode community can be kind of overwhelming, especially when you don't have the tools to get started. The other update is I have officially hit 200 followers on Instagram, and I want to say thank you so much for that. Out of all platforms, that's probably the one that I'm most active on. So with that being said, I want to thank you guys by doing a 200 follower art giveaway. I will be giving more details toward the end of the video. If that piques your interest, I highly suggest you watch towards the end so you know how to apply. The final update is I am officially now accepting commissions for backgrounds and overlays. This was a hill that was really hard for me to climb since I tend to be very critical of my work, but it wasn't until recently I had an offer to make a background for a featured story. Knowing this could potentially lead to other opportunities, I decided to give it a shot. In the end, everything turned out to be great. I'll definitely be providing information on which story it is going to be, but I'll probably leave it exclusively on my Instagram to do a background showcase. I even directed a 6-minute video through the portal showcasing the backgrounds and overlays that I made. If you happen to be interested, I suggest you watch towards the end. In the video, there are some funny scenes that I think you would enjoy. You may have already seen it if you follow me on Instagram or TikTok. Without further ado, we can get right into the tutorial. The first step I would like for you to do is look for the apartment sofa day background within the episode portal and transfer it to Sketchbook. The next step would be to use the cropping tool and crop down the image down to size. Once you have completed the step, we can move on to the next one. There was a tab I deliberately didn't go over in the previous tutorial since I didn't want to overwhelm you with too much information. In this video, we'll be utilizing it a lot to get different looks. Before we get into it, do me a favor and duplicate the background that we're working on, just in case we ever need to go back to the original. Once you have done that, you can go to the image tab and head to adjust, and if you hover right over it, you're going to see the options such as brightness and contrast, hue and saturation, color balance, grayscale, and invert. Right away, if you were to go to brightness and contrast, you can easily flex the brightness and darkness of the image in that layer. With this setting, you can easily make a background look like it's nighttime. Do I personally utilize this to make a night background? Not all the time, but only when it's something very simple. As for contrast, if you were to elevate it or decrease it, you can add more depth or reduce it. If you ever edited your own photos, you're probably familiar with this simple feature, so they definitely work well in conjunction with each other if you balance them out correctly. The next tab under Adjust is Hue and Saturation. You can easily change the saturation with the image and turn it black and white, or you can mess with the lightness to make it very bright or very dark. I kind of want to take a pause here because there is a difference between lightness versus brightness. The best way I can explain it is under the brightness tab, if you were to increase the brightness, it helps bring light to already well lit areas. As for lightness, it deliberately makes something dark or light regardless of its values. So in other words, depending how bright or dark you make your object, based on which feature you use, will determine if it will retain its brilliance or not. If that explanation happens to still be a little bit complicated, We're free to have that discussion down below in the comment section. Continuing where we left off, in order to change the hue of a certain object, we need to touch the saturation slide a little bit in order to get the hue bar going. I don't know the reason why, but that's just how it works. If you're satisfied on how the image looks in the preview, you can go ahead and press OK. If you're not, you can always press undo. The next tab is color balance. You can simply add a specific tint to the image in the layer, and depending on what you're going for, you can slightly change the tonality to give it a certain vibe, but there is definitely unique ways to use this tab. Depending on how extreme you set one of the colors on, it's a fun way to create a different color variation of certain backgrounds or objects. The last option is grayscale, where you can simply remove all color values from the image. This is particularly where it gets a little bit more advanced, because you technically use this option to remove all color so you can add your own, so you can retain the depth of the image. The last option right below is invert, and it will do exactly what it says. There are probably very unique ways to use this setting, but I have yet to do it. But if you can find a way to use it, be my guest. Now that we have a decent understanding of the adjust feature, we are going to apply it to this background. So when you use the adjust feature, it also works with what you select. So in this case, I would like for you to select the wall with the polyline tool. Now that the wall is selected, go ahead and copy the wall and paste it into another layer. Make sure to paste it to the layer above it. This allows you to edit the wall by itself without potentially messing with other aspects of the background. I tend to make this a habit since it allows me to have more control on the project that I'm working on. That's what works for me personally, but the best incentive is always to do what works for you. Later down the line, as you start to get comfortable with larger projects, you'll probably thank yourself that you did make layers for certain items. I just want to clarify, you don't need to separate the wall to get the adjust feature to work. The adjust feature works simultaneously with anything that you select regardless, but I just put it in a different layer for accessibility. Before you go into color balance, make sure you're in the same layer where the wall is. Go ahead and mess with the slides to get a color that you're satisfied with, then press OK. And just like that, you have simply changed the color of the wall. Now that we understand how easy it is to change the color of an object, you have to ask yourself, what else can I potentially change the color of? Depending on how you select the object, you could possibly change the color of the couch, curtain, or even the floor. Since we're still getting comfortable with the feature, I think the next object that would be easy to change would be the floor. We're going to be repeating the same thing that we did, just make sure you have your floor ready to go. If you want, you can go ahead and copy the floor into another layer just to have it separated. Again, make sure you're in the right layer and go ahead and go to color adjust and decide on which color you would like to do. I think I end up going with like a purple. Now that we understand the concept of selecting and adjusting, it's up to you to find unique ways to use this feature. While we're here, you can go ahead and use what we learned from the previous videos to remove the image from the picture frame and the glass from the window. I went ahead and found a background to use as an example to put in the frame of the window. You can use your quick transform tool to size it down properly. Like in the previous tutorials, when we were working with windows, we can go ahead and add our glass by using the paint bucket tool and lowering the transparency of that layer. And we're going to repeat what we did with a different image, and you're going to start to see a trend as we go. And just like that, you have edited your first background. I would like to see what variation of this background you were able to make. If enough people share, I'll gladly make an Instagram story highlight exclusively for your edits. Now that we're getting comfortable by mixing both of what we learned previously and up to now, go ahead and find this background and transfer it to Sketchbook. We're going to repeat what we did with the wall in the previous background, but this time we'll be applying it to the bed sheet. Now that our bed sheet is selected, you can go ahead to adjust and go to color balance, and you can simply pick a color that you would like to go from here. Remember, it doesn't have to be very linear. You can mix the slides between each other to get different combinations. I end up using the blue in mixture of a cyan to get like this sky blue color. You notice when you do change it, it ends up looking really dull at first, but when you apply hue to grayscale areas, it does increase the saturation. I don't advise using apply to grayscale all the time. It is a quick fix, but as you continue adjusting the image color, it will slowly lose its depth because you keep adding color values to the darker areas. When I mean the darker areas, I'm talking about the texture that gives the blanket its unique look. Since I would like a little bit more color, I'm going to do that through the Hue and Saturation tab and increase the saturation by quite a bit, and you are able to add more color without losing too much detail. While we're here, we can also change other aspects such as the background within the window. By this point, you should be comfortable editing out windows, so you already know what we're going to do from here. Towards the bottom of the window, I kind of did a rough select, but you're free to use the polyline tool to get a more accurate selection and go from there. Now that the window is clear, we can go back to the portal and look for another background that we could use to fill in the space. I end up using this lighthouse background, but you're free to use anything else. Depending on which background you chose, you can go ahead and size it down accordingly, and once you're satisfied, go ahead and add the glass effect like usual. Now that we're getting really comfortable with removing and adding, let's try to remove the ashtray by selecting it and deleting it. Once deleted, there may be a chance that the background below the layer may show, but that's fine. The next step would be to fill in the space with textures, so I'm going to ask you to select like a more blank space where the desk is. We're going to use that as our base object to fill in the space. Go ahead and select the sample, have the sample ready in another layer, and proceed to use the quick transform to fill in the gap. You could use the quick transform to a certain extent, but it'd probably be best to use the distort option since you'll be able to line the grain of the wood within the space. We can take it a step further by making the sample blend a little bit more by readjusting the color to match the rest of the desk, and you can do that by lowering the brightness. You may see a little of the silhouette pop out, but this is the first step into getting comfortable with replacing and adding textures. If you're happy with your adjustment, you can go ahead and merge it to the layer where the desk is. Now that's done, I want to focus on adding more details to the background by using different brushes to add different effects. In the meantime, I'm going to hide the bedroom so I have a better idea of what I'm doing. If you were able to download the brushes, in the brush library, there should be a cloud stamp set. Proceed to click on the cloud that you would like to use in this background. Just make sure to do it the layer above the background so you're able to make minor adjustments. Proceed to select the stamp tool, set the color to white, begin stamping into the general area. If you're satisfied with the way you have placed your clouds, you can even use your quick transform in that layer to adjust it if needed. And if you wanted to, this is also a quick way to make a cloud overlay. Now that part is done, you can return the visibility back to all layers, and that's how it would look like. With everything we learned up to now, use this opportunity to experiment with the color of the clouds or even the background to change the overall mood or setting. You can use this as an opportunity to take the clouds and make it into an overlay to upload to the portal. Since I think we had our fair share with backgrounds, I think we can step it up and try to experiment with the episode clothing as well. I'm going to go ahead and look for a piece of clothing that is predominantly white since those tend to be easier to edit. I'll be using this dress, and I didn't know if you download the image directly into your computer, you can save it as a PNG so you don't need to crop it out manually. If you would like to open the file directly without starting over the project, if you head to your layer organizer, you're going to see an icon that looks like a portrait of a tree. and you're going to simply head to your downloads and it should be the first one available. We'll be implementing the same idea where we're going to select the area that we like to change the color of. In this instance, I'll be selecting the bottom of the dress. Like anything I select, I proceed to duplicate it and add it to another layer. Now that the bottom of the dress is separated, I'm going to do exactly what we did with the other backgrounds, where I'm going to go to Image, Adjust, and pick a color of my choice. I end up going with the light blue. Just like that, you can easily make a different variation of some of the episode's clothing. But like anything that we do, we can always take it a step further. Take an opportunity to look at the brush library, observe the type of textures, and see which one would make a good pattern for the clothing that you selected. I found this snowflake brush and I think it would look really cute on the top. If you do plan on editing clothing with brushes, one of the key features I highly recommend that you use. The layer that you're in is the lock icon with the checkered pattern on the right side of it. And what you do is when you activate it, it allows you to paint within the bounds of the layer, so it doesn't bleed outside the image. This is how it turned out for me, and I'll proceed to pretty much do the same exact thing with the bottom of the dress. Just make sure you're in the right layer and you lock the transparency as well. Just like that, you have edited your first piece of clothing. You can experiment more from the episode closet and see what other creations you're able to make. We're going to do one more example for good measure before we end the video. I would like to just say there are some small updates I would like to go over right quick, especially regarding my upload schedule moving forward. So that's something I think I want to inform you guys on so you're not left out in the dark. For our last example, I'll be using the A-line sleeveless dress, and I'm going to download it and transfer it to Sketchbook. Like everything that we color adjust, we select the area that we would like to change, make sure we copy it and paste it into another layer so it is easier to make minor adjustments later on. Proceed to select and color adjust to the color of your liking. I end up going with a lilac purple. Sketchbook has a tendency when you cut, copy, and paste objects into different layers where it creates these small, tiny gaps between the objects. You may have to get around it by simply doing a quick adjustment with a quick transform tool. Since I was able to separate the dress into two pieces, I'm going to focus on the bottom part and simply color adjust it like the way I did with the top. So that pretty much ends it for the tutorial, and before I end the video, I'm going to go over the updates real quick. The first one is regarding the YouTube channel and how I'll be taking a step back for a minute since there are other things I need to focus on in the meantime. So that's why I made it an effort to upload this one, since I know it's going to be a while until the next one. Until then, it would mean a lot if you're able to make suggestions or requests on what the next tutorial should be about. The second update is about the 200 follower art giveaway. For this giveaway, there is only going to be one winner and it's going to be selected at random. You would have a choice between like a profile edit of your episode character or your choice of a 2-zone advanced background. If you want to have a chance at winning, I'll be providing more details on my Instagram. The last update is about how I'm officially accepting paid commissions for backgrounds and overlays. I have made a 6-minute video showcasing the work I have done through the episode portal. Here's the video. hope you enjoyed that short. It took me the whole day to make. I wish I could have made it longer, but you know, when it comes to social media, everything has to be cut down. But maybe next time I'll definitely be making another short showcasing other content. So that ends it for this video. If you have any questions, you can leave them in the comment section below and I'll answer them to the best of my abilities. If you happen to make it this far in the video, I just want to say thank you and I hope to see you in the next one.